It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does on a Tuesday. And great to have you all with us all across America and Canada. Wherever and however you may be watching, we appreciate it. Or listening on the podcast. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Matt Verderame swings by from SI. Talk about the NFL with him, one of their fantastic insiders. Get his thoughts on week one around the league. We will do our NFL picks tomorrow on the show. So be ready for that. NFL picks tomorrow on the show in anticipation of the Thursday opener. And Sam Yarnell is here hanging out with us. And we begin the show today with some college football. Sam Yarnell. They were excited for college football, as excited as they've ever been for college football. In Chapel Hill, North Carolina on Monday night, on Labor Day, the scene set, the entire thing all to themselves with North Carolina entertaining TCU. You get the opening touchdown. Everything's looking great. And then it all didn't look so great as the curtain comes up on the Bill Belichick era. And maybe somebody needed to take the cane or the gong show and wrap this thing up as quickly as possible, because TCU, boy, did they take them to the woodshed, Sam.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens clearly did not know going into this game that there were actually plays that would happen beyond the script. Because the script looked awesome. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. The first, 11 plays of that game for UNC, they looked unstoppable. You had, who was it, Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless tweeting about how UNC is a playoff team. Yeah, that worked out well. And then TCU went on a, 41-0 run in that. They went on like an extended basketball run in this football game. Yeah, this is ridiculous. I'm so happy that this happened. Could not have come at a better time. We'll actually mention this game a little bit later when we're talking about Major League Baseball. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, this was a disaster. This could not have gone worse from a Belichick perspective, from a Jordan Hudson perspective, who seems to have not even been in the building by the end of the game. For all of the countless UNC legends who showed up to this game. I mean, I'm sorry, Michael Jordan, that you've invested so much money in this program. I'd be regretful of that by this point if I were you, considering the national embarrassment they made of themselves last night in Chapel Bill. You had TV reporters wearing cutoff hoodies. I mean, this is one of the most ridiculous things in football history. I don't think that it's, after what we saw last night, a stretch to say that anymore. My only question, and I tweeted this out last night, Jason, how long before UNC buys him out? Because we know that that buyout now is historically low with relation to the rest of the contract. Well, I think that UNC might just cut bait really quickly with this whole thing.
I don't think they can, because then it's a pox on everybody's house. I don't think they're going to cut bait and run. By the way, Gio Lopez went over 2 hours of actual time without completing a pass in this game after that first drive. Just so people can imagine what that's like for the fans that were there, and then those that left in the third quarter of this game, the mass exodus that took place in the second half, which, again, if you are UNC athletic officials, you cannot like that on the biggest stage with that whole stage to yourself. Even the tennis was basically wrapped up by the time this thing started. I mean, UNC owned the stage, and you put out that sort of performance. And it makes you wonder what Bill Belichick was seeing throughout training camp leading up to this game. Because, look, you had 70 new players come in here, and you're trying to make that all work. And keep in mind, and the reason that we won't have North Carolina in our panic meter is they were picked to finish 8th in the ACC. It wasn't like by the experts and people who actually watch college football and watch it on a regular basis, this team was picked to finish 8th in the ACC. The ACC! So, at the end of the day, I know I got to put a quarter in the jar. We should not be shocked that UNC came out here and lost. You should be shocked that they got thoroughly embarrassed at home by TCU, who is, by the way, a pretty good football team and has a much tougher schedule than North Carolina. And here's the good news if you're a North Carolina fan. You only have one ranked opponent the rest of the year, and it's Clemson. That's it. That's the only ranked opponent they have left. They should have 2 layups the next couple of games against Charlotte and then Richmond, and then UCF on the road. There should be a few opportunities to get some momentum here if you're Bill Belichick and this team. But here's the thing. After one game, I don't even think they know who the starting quarterback is going to be. Gio Lopez got rocked in this game and was injured. So they brought in Max Johnson, yes, the son of Brad Johnson, who has an amazing story, by the way. Him playing in this game a year removed from basically shredding his leg to pieces was an amazing story. And he drove the team down the field and actually looked pretty good doing it. Yeah, he's not as mobile and he's not going to run around in the backfield and avoid tackles like Gio Lopez is, but he's a reliable guy throwing the football, and he actually looked good in the time that he was out there, Sam. I wonder if Max Johnson, whether Gio Lopez is healthy or not, it didn't seem like Bill Belichick was all that committed to Gio Lopez for the next game.
Yeah, I mean, it's Charlotte. They just came off of a game where they didn't even show up against Appalachian State, who's a team who's, I don't think, projected to finish in the top 3 in the Sun Belt Conference. So it is a good bounce back spot. The early number's 16.5. I don't know if I lay that with UNC. This is
they got.
Again,
let me tell you,
do
Sam,
I care if they're going to stick with Max Johnson or Gio Lopez in Chapel Hill for the football season? No. All I care about is the car crash that this season already is, and how I'm not going to look away from it for the next 4 months.
No,
because it's going to be that bad.
But here's the thing. You have to talk about the guys on the roster, because as good a coach as Bill Belichick may or may not be at 73 years old, the one thing you have to acknowledge is it's still about the talent. And clearly there is a deficiency in talent here. They got beaten at the point of contact on both sides of the ball like a drum the whole night. And again, I don't know what Bill Belichick can do to fix that.
I mean, I think that it's a coaching issue, right? They're recruiting-wise, this is a team that's done incredibly. Bill Belichick brought in a lot of talent, right? They're ranked as the 31st most talented roster in college football. That's barely outside the top 25. That's 5 spots behind TCU, who's ranked 26th, who just put up 41 points on them. This is a coaching issue when you trust Freddie Kitchens to run your offense in the ACC. And Michael Lombardi to run your program. When you hire a guy off of a gambling show to run a college football program, this is what happens.
I think it takes time to mesh, and that's why I don't think they're going to push the panic button. Speaking of the panic button, we'll have the panic meter coming up in just a couple of minutes on the show. North Carolina will not be on it this week, but next week, maybe. All right, let's keep things moving on this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. Some more college football to talk about. Introducing a new segment on the show today. Behold, after full week 1 of the college football season, it's time for the Sports Wrap Panic Meter. Sam Yarnell, the inaugural edition of the Sports Wrap Panic Meter, and we're doing it in college football. 3 top 10 games in week 1 officially of the college football season, first full week of the college football season. Texas and Ohio State was the one everybody had circled on their calendar, Sam. So I ask you, the panic meter for Texas after going into Ohio State and doing almost nothing offensively as the top-ranked team in the nation, and Arch Manning struggling mightily. The panic meter is
low. It's not high for me on Texas because
on a 1 by the way, 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is the panic
meter. Can I do decimals? I'd go 1. If I could do decimals, I'd go like maybe 1.3, 1.5. Again, it's because you saw the talent was there. They showed you how talented of a football team they are. They showed you how good their defense is. The problem is they didn't call good plays for Arch Manning. I saw someone say this on Twitter, and I think it's a perfect depiction of what happened. It's like they played the whole game with the training wheels on in an SEC offense. I didn't quite understand the game planning behind it, especially in Arch Manning's first game in Ohio Stadium. Like, there are kind of two ways you can go with that, either the very conservative route or the very aggressive route. They chose the very conservative route, and I just don't think that's ever a decision I would have made. For that reason, though, and for the talent all being there and what they, again, showed you they could do on defense, I'm going to say very low on this. I'll stay at a 1.
I will not go as low as you did, because narratives are formed very quickly, fairly or unfairly. Narratives in sports are formed very quickly. And the narrative around one of the, if not the highest paid quarterback in all of college football, Arch Manning, the narrative now is starting to be formed. He is not an accurate passer of the football. And that is one thing that makes him a lot different from his uncles, Eli and Peyton. He has never been, really, in the limited time we've seen him, to be an incredibly accurate thrower of the football. And that sort of bared itself out, starting with the first throw in this game. And he has to work on his accuracy. They're going to be in games because, as good as Ohio State's defense was, we seem to ignore conveniently. I mean, they went into Ohio State and only gave up 14 points, to that Ohio State Buckeyes team. I would put the panic meter, though, a little bit higher, just based on the fact that Arch Manning struggled as much as he did in that game. And you could talk about play calling, and some of that I think is very fair. But at the same time, if the one thing we can't get inside is his head. And Arch Manning will say all the right things, and he's done all of that leading up to this first game. I will be very anxious to see how he comes out in these next couple of games, which should be very winnable games, by the way. San Jose State, UTEP, and then Sam Houston, the next few games for Texas. So they'll be able to get their feet under them before they take on Florida down in the swamp on, let's see, what is the date of that game? It's actually a TBD. They actually don't have the actual date and time put on it yet. But coming up later in September. I'll put the number at 2.5 out of 5 right now. But I won't go crazy either. I know a lot of people are going to. All right, the panic meter Sam Yarnell after the first full week of the college football season on Alabama. Whoa, Nelly! After they go into Florida State and get their you-know-what's kicked in. The panic meter is
a 7, a 12, a 13. The number cannot go high enough. This is horrible. What is going on in the state of Alabama? What is going on in the town of Tuscaloosa? And now, days removed, obviously, once we've had our reactions from the fans on the Paul Feinbaum show, which was awesome. Legend was back at it again yesterday. This is truly disastrous territory for Alabama, losing to an unranked team, an unranked Florida State team, a team that was an embarrassment last year, a team that's starting Thomas Castellanos, and this is what Kalen DeBoer has. Yeah, it was absolutely embarrassing for Alabama. And then Kalen DeBoer got on the podium after the game and threw up all over it. I mean, it was a horrible press conference after the game from DeBoer. And now on Monday and Tuesday, there are these reports surfacing on message boards, which, I mean, those of you in Southern college football states can debate the veracity of message boards until the cows come home. But the fact of the matter is they get there for a reason. And now we're seeing all over these Alabama message boards that these Alabama players were Uber Eatsing things to the team hotel at 2 a.m. and bringing random people into the hotel. This is a mess. DeBoer has completely lost control of the program. I doubt he makes it through the season.
I will pin the needle all the way to 5 on the panic meter because that's as high as it goes. But we might break that thing off. Based on what we saw. We
need the needle to just start shaking and then just snap off.
Yeah, we're pinning it, as we used to say in radio. LSU and Clemson. I thought we would be talking about potentially here the panic meter on LSU, given what's happened to them over the last few years with Brian Kelly there. Instead, We're talking about it with Clemson losing at home with one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and LSU finally getting over the hump in a Week 1 game, Sam. The panic meter for the Clemson Tigers after a loss at home to LSU.
It's between a 2 and a 3. Yeah, probably 2.5, like the number that you used earlier in the segment. Listen, we are in week 1 of the college football season. The defenses naturally, because of how football works, are going to be further ahead than the offenses are. You saw it across the board in FBS over the weekend, right? So I'm not going to panic. The Cade Klubnik threw for over 200 yards, right? And completed 50% of his passes. I'm not going to panic about that yet. However, now Clemson's got ground to make up. Luckily, they're in the ACC where everybody's horrible.
Yeah, I would actually tend to agree with you on that. I will not go crazy because they are in the ACC and they do have a lot of time to sort of make up ground there with only a few ranked opponents.
They're competing against Bill Belichick. Come on, Jason. They're winning that conference.
A little disconcerting to see Cade Klubnik play the way he did in that game, though. 19 of 38. A pick. 230. Very pedestrian, as opposed to what I was expecting from him. Matt Verderame is anything but pedestrian. He joins us in a couple of minutes from SI and SI.com. We'll talk NFL with him next. All right, we take it to segment 3 on this Tuesday edition of the show. Continue the conversation. More football. It's a big week for football. Get into the NFL side of it. Our friend Matt Verderame hangs out with us from SI and SI.com. One of their NFL insiders. Chatting with us about week 1 in the NFL. I know I asked you this privately, but tell people so you've got a busy week. What are you going to 2 different games?
Well, yeah, so I'll be at Monday Night Football in Chicago, and then on Thursday I'll be at week 2, Green Bay and Washington on Thursday Night Football.
Love it.
So, luckily, it's not a big haul for me to get to either one of them. But yes, I'll be at both those games. I'm actually going to be in New York visiting family for the weekend, and then I'm flying back to Chicago for the Monday game. And my wife and my kids are going to drive home. And I'm going to get in the car and drive to Soldier Field right from O'Hare, come home, be home for a day, go to Lambeau.
What are you doing? Back. What are you? How a trip to New York the weekend? Are you going to the game? Are you going to a game out there?
No.
Oh my God.
I grew up 20 minutes from Woodstock,
yeah.
And Blink-182 was playing at Woodstock, and so I was I'm going. I don't care.
All right.
So I can thankfully cover the other games from anywhere on earth that has a Wi-Fi signal and a television. So, I'm going to make it work.
All right. That's awesome. Who did not make it work with the Cowboys with Micah Parsons?
No.
Give me some sort of, now that we've had, several days to sort of stew in this, give me sort of your take and what you've heard from talking to people around the league about how this whole thing just fell apart.
My take is it's just really dumb. I know that's not unbelievably high level analysis, but
there we go, ladies and gentlemen.
But there's no excuse for it. Like I don't care what Jerry Jones's problem was with Micah Parsons, or if he felt that he wanted too much money. You have no defense without him. Like your defense doesn't work. That defense is going to be brutal. Okay, and this is a defense with Matt Eberflus who he loves to play cover 2 and not blitz. Well, you know what you need if you don't blitz? Like a guy who can hit the quarterback and rush the passer and win one-on-one and sometimes even defeat a double team. Do you know what the 31st ranked blitz rate last year in football? The Packers. They don't blitz either. And they were looking at that roster going, you know what? Rashawn Gary's a nice player, but we could really use somebody up front who can get pressure immediately so we don't have to blitz and do what we don't want to do. Well, now they got that guy. Talking to people in the league, I was talking to multiple different coordinators. And I had one defensive coordinator I thought said something really interesting to me. I know this quote's gotten around a little. He said, look, he can be a pain in the ass. He can be really difficult, and he's not well-liked in the building, but he can really rush the quarterback. And it kind of sums it up. Like, yeah, look, you know what? I don't care about his podcast. I don't care. Like, there are certain players in the NFL that when they're on the field, The opponent needs to know where they are every single second. And he's one of them. I did not speak to one person, and I texted probably 24 who thought Dallas did well in that trade.
Matt, you said on the field with relation to when Micah Parsons is the best for a football team, potentially having those off-field issues. Obviously, him being on the field is a huge question right now, with all this talk going around about the epidurals and the back and how he passed this physical with the Packers to approve the trade, but there's this ongoing thing between two vertebrae of his. What's your concern level with Micah Parsons when it comes to him playing week one, or how effective he is throughout the course of an 18-game season with this lingering back issue?
I'm concerned in the sense that there's a lot of pressure on him, I'm sure, just internally to play. I'm not saying from the Packers, but from his own personal feelings. Like, you just got $47 million a year. I don't care who you are. There's a pressure there to, hey, man, I better go out and perform. Like, I better go out and do the job here. Especially when you're wired like that. There might be certain guys who say, I take my foot off the gas a little bit, but like, if you're that good of a player, there's a reason for it, and it's not because you take your foot off the gas. So, look, I think he's going to play, and I think it depends too. Like, if he gets an epidural and it works, he's probably fine. If he gets an epidural and it doesn't work, then you're going to have to manage this thing all year long, and maybe a guy of that quality you barely even notice. Maybe you really notice. But I think, look, the reality is, I would be surprised if he's not out there, because when you get traded for that kind of haul and you get that kind of contract, there is a lot of internal push that I have to be there. So I expect him to see action week one against Detroit.
Okay. What about Matthew Stafford? A lot of us kind of took the approach of, well, maybe they were just kind of managing him in the preseason, a veteran guy, doesn't need to be out there that much. Now you're starting to get the sense this might be more serious.
Yeah. I mean, it probably wasn't good when they pulled up with like a trailer for him to go in during training camp, like an Airstream. That wasn't great. I'm picking them to go to the Super Bowl, but I'm doing it with one eye open, because they could also be 6-11 real fast if that back doesn't hold up.
I agree with you, by the way. I like that pick on the Rams. I'm very much with you.
I think, but it scares the hell out of me. I mean,
sure.
Look, he's 37. I'm not an NFL player. I'm 37, and I had epidurals, and they didn't work, and I had to have back surgery. And I was fine 2 months later, but 2 months later in the NFL season, it's not cutting it. I also am not getting hit by Micah Parsons. So you got to factor all that in. It does scare me. Like, it's a back injury. It's not a toe. It's not, it's not like Jordan Love had a thumb injury, but it was on his non-throwing hand. Like, he's fine. It is concerning. And, this is a Rams team that, while I love the team, I love the roster, it's not a great offensive line. Lark Jackson, he's been dealing with some stuff with blood clotting. It's a line that he's not mobile, and it's not a great, week one's not going to be easy. You got Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter screaming off the edges. Like, that ball better be out. If I'm Sean McVay, a lot of quick passes in that game.
We've got like 30 seconds left, Matt, but I wanted to get your thoughts with relation to the Stafford thing. How does it affect Davante Adams, a guy who just came into LA and is now potentially playing with the backup in Jimmy Garoppolo, who he forced out of 2 teams ago because of Jimmy Garoppolo? How do you read that all playing out?
Yeah, and he was right to force him out. Look, I think you know what? It's gonna be interesting, because there's not a whole lot of chemistry there. They haven't practiced a lot together, so that's the stuff. Like, I think it comes down to a lot of that stuff where it's like 3rd and 6, and there's an adjustment. You're going to kind of make that adjustment just by looking at each other if you know each other well enough. They don't. So, does that lead to a miscommunication? I think that's probably the biggest concern. Although the fact they're both really seasoned vets does help. I think that does smooth it out a little bit.
All right, there's more to talk about with Matt Verderame that we will get to coming up here in a couple of minutes as we get ready for the start of the NFL season. By the way, we are now on in Kansas City 6 days a week. And I know, Matt, you do the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon, which a lot of people could watch. For our fans in Kansas City, make sure to check that out. All right, we continue things on this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. Let me ask you something, Matt, just to go back to the Cowboys for a second. What are the realistic expectations for this team now when you take Parsons off of it?
I mean, look, they're basically like the Walmart version of the Bengals.
That's exactly what I say. I agree.
But like, what is the Walmart version of a team that didn't even make the playoffs last year? 7-10, 6-11. Like, I don't.
Let's go Temu. They're the Temu. Just in case Walmart wants to sponsor the show.
They're a 6 or 7 win team. Like, they're fine offensively. They're good offense. Defensively, they're a mess. And the other question too is like, what is George Pickens? Does George Pickens go in there and play well, or is George Pickens a complete head case for 18 weeks and they can't wait to get rid of him and they're going to eat a 3rd round pick?
The Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. Also, Matt Verderame doing a great job over at SI. Go ahead, Sam.
Matt, I wanted to bring up with you one of the developing stories of the weekend when Tyreek Hill wasn't named a captain for the Dolphins. Obviously, this is a situation that's been going on for months, ever since the end of the last game of last season, where he was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm coming back here. Tua's been saying a bunch of things in the media. Do you think Tyreek Hill gets traded this year?
I think it depends on, like, the Dolphins' schedule is really easy the first, 7 or 8 weeks. And so you wonder, like, I can see them being a team that starts 5-2 and finishes 7-10. Like, if you look at their schedule, like, it's built to kind of do that. But I would say the first 2 games of the season are really going to determine it, because they play at Indiana and they're home to New England. They can win both those games. They can lose both those games. And if they lose both those games, week 3 is at Buffalo on a Thursday night. They're going to get shellacked in that game. Buffalo's going to hang 45 points on them. So you look at it and just go, okay, like, if they're not good, and I expect them to be awful, for the record. I'm not a believer in Miami. But if they're not good, yeah, I think he's gone. Look, if he gets traded, I think there's a very real possibility that Kansas City tries to reacquire him. I really, like, I think that is, if he goes on the block, I think there's a very, very real shot that they would go after him and try to pair him with Rice and Worthy and Kelsey and whatever, and just say, here it comes, beat us. It's a match race.
Tuesday vibes on a couple of things, couple of teams that we're sort of looking at here. The Steelers coming out of camp, you got no Aaron Rodgers in the preseason games. What are the vibes around this team right now as they get ready to take on the Jets?
A lot of uncertainty. I think when you talk to people around the league about the Steelers, and there's just a lot of wait and see. Like, we don't really know. I think fair or unfair, I frankly think it's fair. There was a lot of, hey, look, he wasn't good with the Jets, but it's the Jets. Like, let's see. I think there's a lot of feeling like the Jets are not going to succeed because they're the Jets, and we'll see what Aaron Glenn can do there. Whereas, like, the Steelers, it's kind of the opposite. Like, well, it's Mike Tomlin. Like, they're going to win games just based on the fact that they're well coached, they've got a good defense. I think people think they'll be competitive, but there's a lot of unknowns. It's a new quarterback and a new star receiver. Pickens is gone. I think they'll be a borderline playoff team. I think that's where most people in the league kind of feel. 9-10 wins, somewhere in that range.
Tuesday vibes on the Bears and the Vikings, because they obviously meet each other in a game that I know you'll be checking out. Tuesday vibes on both of those teams.
Look, Minnesota quietly, I saw both teams in camp. Minnesota quietly has a lot of faith in McCarthy. A lot of it. I'll tell you right now, I think that team's got a top 5 roster in the league. That team, I would not be shocked if they're fighting to go to the Super Bowl if McCarthy's even halfway decent. Like, they are loaded. They're really talented. I think Renard is going to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Like, he was the best player I saw in camp, not named Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes all summer. The Bears, look, I think there's a thought that the defense will be good. Dennis Allen's an excellent coordinator. Ben Johnson, I think that offense takes a little time to gel. Like, one of the problems they've had this summer, they can't stop having false start penalties. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, they're really struggling with the cadence. And I think part of that is a brand new offensive line. It's a lot of terminology with Ben Johnson. The left tackle spot is pretty weak. Look, I think the Bears are one of these teams that'll get better as the year goes on.
Okay.
Matt, I wanted to get your sense Tuesday vibes on the Chargers. I mean, obviously the Slater injury was huge earlier in camp. Najee Harris is apparently expecting to play in week 1 despite potentially being blind and using echolocation per Jim Harbaugh. They brought in Keenan Allen off the couch. What do you make of the Chargers this year?
A lot of people have argued that they're better than they were a year ago, and I don't understand the argument. Like, I just don't, like, why? Why are they better? I went into the offseason thinking, all right, look, they got some momentum. They've got Ladd McConkey. They'll add receivers. They did nothing. They lost Joshua Palmer. They brought in Mike Williams, who then retired. They brought in Keenan Allen. They brought in Trey Harris. But, like, I look at the Chargers and say, you know what they want to do? They want to pound the football. But without Slater, that becomes a lot harder. That becomes a much more difficult thing. Because now all of a sudden it's like, all right, listen, unless you're running behind Joe Alt on every play, the rest of that line's not great. Defensively, you know, you look at Derwin James, he's awesome. Who else is awesome? Who else? Like those corners, that's a real problem. Like, I look at this week 1 game and say they better get home with Mahomes. Because if they don't, he's going to slice up that secondary. So I think the Chargers are a 8 to 9 win team. I think they're average. I don't think they're terrible, but I don't buy the hype around them. I just think they're kind of there, and they're fighting for the 7 seed.
Since we're doing our NFL picks tomorrow, we'll get yours now. Super Bowl pick is?
Kansas City over the Rams. I mean, until the Chiefs are a bad half away against the Bengals a few years ago from going for the 7-peat in the AFC right now. I'm just like I was with New England all. I'm picking that team to do it until they don't.
Okay.
The NFC is a harder pick for me, but look, I think in the end, in the AFC, there's 3 teams that can get to the Super Bowl. It's Kansas City, it's Buffalo, it's Baltimore. Those 3 teams. I don't think anybody else can realistically do it. The NFC is far more wide open. So for me, I'll take Chiefs over Rams.
All right, love it. Matt Verderame. Check him out on SI and also in SI and also the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. Always love talking to you, my friend. Happy NFL Week 1, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Odds and Ends wraps it up 10 minutes from now. You didn't think we forgot about baseball, did you? No, come on. The calendar hit September yesterday. You think we forgot about baseball? It's been very good to us. We love baseball. We are tentatively scheduled to have Jabba Chamberlain on later this week with David Ardsma in our Thursday baseball segment. I'm looking forward to that. Stan Verrett on the show tomorrow, former alum of ESPN and the Sports Center days. Him and Neil Everett have a new show coming out on Twitch that they'll be streaming, and I'm excited to talk to Stan Verrett, who will join us on the show tomorrow. He's also the Saints game day host this season. All right, Sam Yarnell, baseball news and notes. Juan Soto showed up for the Mets this weekend, huh? Hit a grand slam. Mets beat the Tigers. Hope you took the over in that game. And Sam, the Mets are still hanging in there in the National League. I know you keep waiting for the wheels to fall off, but the Mets are still hanging in there right now. Come on. Oh,
I'm sorry. It just made me laugh that this is the phrasing we're using when a team that went out and spent more money on a roster than every team of the 30 besides one is currently clinging to the last wild card spot, right? Ahead of the Cincinnati Reds. And we're acting like this season is some grand success. My goodness.
Just get into the playoffs, man. Just get in.
This is a team that was almost minus 200 to win the division when numbers went off the board on opening day. They're going to get the last playoff spot in the National League, and we're acting like the season was a success. Let's really
just get in.
Now let's attack this again without the New York bias and understand that the Mets in reality are a above mediocre at their best baseball club, which is what you've seen from them over the last 3 months that's led them to this exact spot that they're currently in. Again, if I had to put my money down today and you were forcing me to, gun to my head, yeah, I'd bet the Mets to miss the playoffs. I would. Because quite frankly, a 4-game lead on September 1st is not as big as all these people out here acting like the Mets are just already ready to play in the NLDS, right, are making it to seem.
I'd love the Reds to get in, but look. They've lost 7 of 10. I know they got a great win yesterday, but they've lost 7 of 10. The Mets are going to get in the playoffs. The Mets will squeak in. And all you got to do is get in. As we know these days, all you got to do is get in. The Yankees, by the way, just to wrap the New York part of this, atop the AL wildcard spot comfortably now. And I should say comfortably as far as just being a wild card team. They're 76-61. They're 15 over 500. They won 7 in a row. They lost yesterday to the White Sox. But Sam, you got beef with the Yankees? What's the matter here?
No, I do think it's hilarious, and you know there was a former Yankee on social media, a longtime Yankee on social media who pointed this out last night. I do think it's absolutely hilarious that this team, this Yankees team, who the resident Yankees fan on the show has not stopped screaming about their manager for the last 6 weeks, right?
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, right when the calendar flips to September, the most important month of the baseball regular season, unequivocally, hands down, nobody will argue with me on that. I am convinced of it. The first day of that month, the manager of said not first place team is 600 miles down the coast in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, visiting a football game with a hoodie tied around his waist. I mean, baseball in New York needs serious reform because it's a mess in the Bronx and it's a disaster in Queens, Jason.
Sam, I'm going to tell you something right now. The Yankees are going to win that division. And we're going to be stuck with Aaron Boone forever. The Yankees are going to win that division. They're plus 260 right now, by the way, to win the AL East. Take the Yankees to win the division. I'm telling you. They're 2 out, and they've still got 3 to play against the Blue Jays. And I know they haven't been good against the Blue Jays or, frankly, any other good team in baseball this year as they get ready to take on the Astros for a few games here in Houston. But take the Yankees to win the division at plus 260 right now. I'm just letting you know. You'll thank me later. Mark the date on the calendar, September 2nd. There we go. Sam, elsewhere in baseball, because there is other teams besides the Yankees to keep an eye on. We mentioned Detroit, and just as I thought they were starting to put it together, now they've lost 6 of 10 again. And I know they're going to win the division, and I know there's a very good chance they're going to wind up with the best record in the American League because the Yankees and Blue Jays are going to beat each other up here. But level of concern on Detroit as we hit the month of September.
0.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, look at these games that they're losing, right? You need the Mets to do like the frankly impossible to finally pull off a ninth inning comeback, which they seemingly haven't been able to do all season, right? You played a tough series against the Royals, right? That athletic series for the Tigers was no one is going to hold that against them for a multitude of reasons. One being that it took place in Suter Health Ballpark. 2 being that the Athletics needed 33 innings to end a 3-game series. The Tigers are what the Tigers are going to be. Their ceiling is a World Series loser, just like any team in the American League.
I will say this. It is remarkable the Rangers are still hanging around in this wild card race, given everything that's befallen that team this season. The fact that they are still just 2 games behind the Mariners, and the Mariners had better figure out a way to get across this finish line. I mean, if they have got to make the playoffs this year because everybody else behind them are teams that don't belong in the playoffs. The Mariners better figure out a way to get in.
If they don't make the playoffs, Aaron Judge is the MVP.
I agree. I think he's going to be the MVP anyway at this point. I've kind of flipped on that. I know.
Be the MVP.
I flipped on it because Judge is hitting the ball better. And he's got 100 points higher batting average than Cal Raleigh. Odds and ends are next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Don't forget, tomorrow, Stan Verderame, ESPN SportsCenter alum. He and Neil Everett were a staple of the late-night West Coast Sports Center until ESPN decided to shut down its L.A. hub. And Neil and Stan went off on their own. They've got a new show coming out, Stan Everett. It's a combination of Neil and Stan. There you go. Stan Verderame, who's also going to be working on the Saints game day operations for them in New Orleans this year. He's a fellow from the South. So he will join us on tomorrow's show. Looking forward to that. Thursday, of course, David Ardsma. We've got our baseball to talk about. We've got NFL preview tomorrow. Our predictions for the season, Sam and myself. You won't want to miss that either. All right. Couple of reminders. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, Anywhere you get a podcast, you can get this show in its audio form, Monday through Friday, commercial free, over on any podcasting platform that you choose to go and get it from. You can also watch this show on 300 affiliates around the U.S. and Canada. But in addition to being able to watch it on television, broadcast, cable, digital outlets all over the place, you can also watch this show on Spotify Monday through Friday and on our YouTube channel, the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. SportsWrap shorts are there as well, sometimes clips from the show, sometimes clips not from the show, because news is always breaking and we've always got something to say about it. Check out the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. They say when you go to a baseball game, there's a really good chance you're going to see something you've never seen before. They've been playing this game for a zillion years. And chances are you will never see something like what happened yesterday at Fenway Park with Trevor Story hitting this weird home run off the right field foul pole, the pesky pole, if you will. It was like a 305-foot home run. People complain about Yankee Stadium. That Trevor Story hit yesterday for the Red Sox in a game against the Guardians. They'd go back and review it, but as you can see, or maybe you can't see, some people are questioning whether this should have been a home run or not. But it was called a home run. Red Sox go on to get the win, keep their wild card hopes alive, as they are one of the 3 teams in the American League with a wild card spot. The U.S. Open continues out at Flushing in Queens. And look, I mean, there's 4 guys left on the men's side at this point that you can look at realistically at having any shot to win this thing. And 2 of them are overwhelming favorites. Jannik Sinner at minus 140 right now to win the U.S. Open. Carlos Alcaraz is at plus 170. He is in action on Tuesday as well. But then I think a very interesting number is Novak Djokovic at plus 1,500. In what could be his last go-around in these Grand Slams. We don't really know what's going to happen to Novak Djokovic after this season, this Grand Slam season, is complete. But you could get literally the greatest player in the history of tennis. Think about that. The greatest to ever do it in tennis. You can get him right now at 15-1 to win the U.S. Open. And he's had a relatively easy road so far, which he needs because we know as these Grand Slam events have gone on, his body breaks down. And he's had some issues with health as we continue to go through these slams. But you can get Novak Djokovic at 15-1. And I'm not saying he's going to win, but from a value standpoint, Novak Djokovic at 15-1 feels like a really strong pick right now. Taylor Fritz is the only American, I believe, left in the field, and right now he is at 30-1. So if you want to make a bet on an American sentimental pick, that is the one you would make. On the women's side, Iga Swiatek right now is at plus 170. Aryna Sabalenka at plus 200. Naomi Osaka 5-1 after beating Coco Gauff yesterday in convincing fashion. Look, we knew Coco Gauff with everything going on with the serve, and her serve was actually okay yesterday, but everything surrounding her right now, you knew it was going to be impossible for her to make a deep run here at this U.S. Open. Osaka is at 5-1, and then Jessica Pegula, who's in action today, at 12-1. Swiatek, Sabalenka, obviously the favorites there, but watch Osaka. She gets deep into tournaments. She is very dangerous. One last thing. Venus Williams' run at this U.S. Open continues. On the doubles side, she's playing with Leylah Fernandez, and the 2 of them, I believe now, are in the final 8 for the women's doubles competition. And kudos to Venus, who is 45 years old out there doing what she's doing. She called out her sister Serena, I love it, and said, hey, you better come out here and start watching. And Serena stayed away. She hasn't been out there at the U.S. Open, sort of doing her thing. But Venus said, Serena, come on out. The water's warm. You can come out and watch me out here at the U.S. Open. So hopefully Serena shows up, because I think that would only add to the intrigue of Venus trying to win another Grand Slam at the age of 45, this time on the women's doubles side, where she won so many of those with her sister Serena. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us on this Tuesday edition of the show. Appreciate you watching. Thanks to Sam Yarnell for hanging out, as always. Thanks to Matt Verderame. Does a great job on the NFL with SI and SI.com. The Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. Check him out there as well. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here Wednesday for an all-new Sports Wrap. See you then.